What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. In this video, we're going to be talking about some fresh takes on the Canucks' reported 2C trade route that came out just the other day. Obviously, we did a video on the fact that the Vancouver Canucks' interest has cooled on Jack Roslovic, as they don't see him as a full-time center, basically replacement. So we're going to go over a article rather, talking about some fresh takes. Now, yes, before anyone says anything, a lot of these particular players that we're going to be looking at are people that we've talked about throughout this offseason. They're names that keep getting brought up when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks and them being, reported targets for the Vancouver Canucks. In this article, having read it, basically all these names are taken and they are categorized, and there's some that we haven't talked about in this as well. So we're going to dive into that, but let me quickly, just as I always do, give a quick shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that amazing artwork you see there behind me. And you guys can check him out yourselves at gassjackart.com. There's a link to his website in the description down below. You guys can also check him out on Instagram at gassjackart. So let's go ahead and dive into this topic. Of course, an article brought to us by our friends at Canucks Army, written by Stefan Roget, and he goes on to say, same as it ever was, same as it ever was. Whatever the actual level of interest the Vancouver Canucks ever had in UFA Jack Roslovic, their quote-unquote pursuit may be at an end. Earlier this week, Thomas Drance of The Athletic reported that the Canucks had quote-unquote cooled off on Roslovic. Drance further elaborated that the club wants a full-time center upgrade and doesn't see that player available in the UFA bargain bin. It's going to take a trade. And then goes on to show a tweet, that exact tweet from Thomas Drance. You guys can find that on X. Now, some will question how newsy this news truly is. The fact of the matter is that this year's UFA market never really contained much in the way of realistic center options for the Canucks, and one would hope it didn't take them until mid-August to figure that out. There's one piece here that's definitely not new news. It's that ongoing hunt for a 2C via a trade. In fact, this topic is so ongoing that it's become a bit tough to write about. After all, the list of potentially available centers hasn't changed much over the course of the offseason, and the Canucks would appear to have not gotten all that much closer to trading for one. With that in mind, and the knowledge that we're mostly discussing names we've already talked about before on here, our goal today is to at least deliver some fresh takes on those same old trade targets. Below, you'll find various 2C options sorted into some new categories, along with some updated commentary on the likelihood of the Canucks actively pursuing said player. Let's start off with the RFAs that you are sick of hearing about. We have to talk about these two, but we acknowledge that we've already talked about them plenty, as have I on this podcast and this YouTube channel. First up, Marco Rossi. Extension negotiations between Rossi and the Wild were said to be a little acrimonious right off the bat due to Rossi's playoff deployment, and the fact that they're still ongoing in August probably speaks to that. There's still time to figure it out, but if the Wild front office is examining their various options, we have to imagine they prefer a trade over an offer sheet. With an offer sheet, the return can only be future draft picks, but Minnesota is trying to capitalize on the prime years of their top offensive talent, Kirill Kaprizov. If a team could offer them more NHL-ready assets or a mix of NHL-ready and future base, one has to think that's more appealing to Bill Guerin and company. The Canucks could offer up a currently useful forward like Filipino, whose salary would probably need to be moved in order to accommodate Rossi's new contract anyway, along with their 2026 first-round pick, so long as appropriate protections were put in place. that may not be enough to close the deal, but maybe as the talks drag on, the asking price might drop a tad. Next up, Mason McTavish. All right, you can take most of what we wrote about Rossi and apply it to McTavish. The key difference is that the Ducks aren't at quite the same competitive stage as are the Wild. They might not be so focused on currently usable assets. Then again, the Ducks would seem to have largely completed the important parts of their rebuild and are making the slow climb back to the playoffs. Between the two, McTavish does seem like the one who will be tougher to acquire. He's got more intangible qualities, and the Ducks have a lot more cap space with which to operate. Still, until that extension gets signed, it remains a remote possibility that cannot be discounted. Now let's take a look at centers from cap-cutting clubs. Despite the cap ceiling jumping up this offseason, there are still teams who want or need to cut cap before the season begins, and some of them might have centers for sale. First up, we have William Karlsson from the Vegas Golden Knights. Technically speaking, the Knights are already some $7.5 million over the salary cap. The reality, however, is that they'll be able to cover that entirely by placing Alex Pietrangelo and his $8.8 million cap hit on LTIR, a status from which he is not expected to return. Still, doing so would leave Vegas at their absolute maximum for spending very early on in the season, and they're a club that traditionally loves to make in-season upgrades, especially now that they're down a top defender. In looking at their roster, the Knights are honestly a little overloaded on quality centers. Tomas Hertl might make the most sense to move for cap reasons, but he's got an especially restrictive no-trade clause. Karlsson is an original Golden Knight, but that doesn't seem to matter much to Vegas management, and he would be much easier for them to move. Next up, we have Nicholas Waugh from the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs are about $2 million under the cap, so they don't need to cut salary, but the word on the street is that their interest in Roslovic has not cooled, and that they're still attempting to cut cap in order to fit him. This will likely be accomplished by the dumping of an expensive fourth liner like David Kampf or Calle Jarnkrok, but if the Maple Leafs want to get a little bit of value back in their cap dump, another option is Waugh. Waugh came back from the Golden Knights as part of the quote-unquote return for Mitch Marner, but at that point, they had to take something. It's tough to say how much Waugh is actually in their plans, and they do have some other options available at center. Combine the cap cutting with the extra Neos. I'm not even going to bother with that one. And Waugh might wind up being a relatively buy low option. Next up, we have Ross Colton from the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche just signed Victor Olofsson to a contract, and his $1.575 million contract leaves him just over $1.3 million of available cap space. It also leaves him with an excess of bottom six forwards. Of the set, the best is probably Colton, but he's also the most expensive at $4 million cap hit. We suspect it might not cost that much to pry him loose, and there's been talk in the past of Colton specifically seeking a trade out of Colorado so that he'd have more of a chance to play center. Well, we know where he could get that chance. Next up, we have Evan Rodriguez of the Florida Panthers. The Panthers are almost $4 million over the cap, and unlike some of the other teams mentioned here, they don't have an easy way to get back under. Chances are good that Matthew Tkachuk will start the season on LTIR, but that's only a temporary solution as he will return at some point. The name most associated with Florida cost cutting is Rodriguez, a versatile forward who can play all three forward positions. Given his recent playoff performances, there's probably a decent sized market for him, so some sort of bidding war may ensue, though we like the odds of the Panthers preferring to send Rodriguez to the West. Now let's take a look at the unexpected revisits. This is a collection of names that the Canucks have reportedly been interested in before and could now be circling back on. First up, Marty Necas from the Colorado Avalanche. We know the Canucks were interested in Necas back when he was a Hurricane and Elias Pettersson trade talks were ongoing. We also know that the Avalanche are all too happy to trade their pending UFAs if extension talks aren't going well. Necas enters this season as a pending UFA, Should the Avs decide to flip him instead of re-signing him, the Canucks will probably show interest again, even if it's yet to be determined if Necas is a full-time center in the NHL. The challenge here would be both coming up with the assets required, Hedl and a first won't cover this, and then finding the cap space to extend Necas beyond this year. Neither will be easy tasks. Next up, we have Josh Norris of the Buffalo Sabres. We've written plenty about Quinn Hughes' best friend before. For now, he seems to be a part of the plan in Buffalo, but if the Sabres get off to another bad start, they've almost got to clean their managerial house, and if a new GM comes in, he might not feel as committed to Norris's $7.95 million cap hit and extensive injury history. It takes some waiting, but if Norris were to hit the market at a reduced cost, it'd be hard for the Canucks to not at least want to kick the tires, especially with that Hughes extension still pending. Next up, we have Jared McCann of the Seattle Kraken. It's often tough to guess what the Kraken are really doing. They don't need cap space, they need additional talent, but there's still some word on the street about McCann being available. One could assume this has something to do with the team slowly but surely shifting to a focus around young centers, Matthew Beniers and Shane Wright, in addition to the bounty of our recent draft picks on the way. Maybe the team is looking to sell McCann 1 year before he's a pending UFA and to use a trade to recoup some longer-term assets. If there's any lingering bad blood between McCann and the club that gave up on him, one has to hope it's faded by now. The Canucks aren't going to find much better bang for buck in a top 6 center than McCann at $5 million, so long as the Kraken don't instill too heavy of a rivalry tax on the trade cost. Next up, we have Jesperi Kotkaniemi of the Carolina Hurricanes. With more than $10 million in cap space and an already contending roster, the Hurricanes are probably good to stand pat for now. But we will note that this is the last year before Kotkaniemi receives a 10-team no-trade clause. If the Hurricanes are looking to move on easily and the Canucks are still somewhat interested, maybe there's something there. Next up, we have Pavel Zacha of the Boston Bruins. We're cheating a little on this one because there have never been any concrete rumors of the Canucks' interest in Zacha, just various whispers, both when he was on the Devils and since he's arrived in Boston. There have also been very recent talk of the Bruins putting Zacha on the market in this late offseason, which has our ears perked up. At the very least, we know that this Vancouver front office has been very comfortable pilfering from the Boston system before. Now let's take a look at some, potential options that are from out of left field. A little baseball reference for you. First up, Rickard Rakell from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Rakell has mostly been a winger of late, but he's reportedly able to play all 3 forward positions, and if that's the case, he looks like a decently priced and unusually productive option, though one can't count on him repeating the 70 points he achieved last year. There's some uncertainty whether or not the 32-year-old is still up to top 6 center duties, however, and it would be quite a gamble to acquire him for that specific duty. Next up, we have Nazem Kadri of the Calgary Flames. Kadri is one of those rare players who just seems to get better with age. Still, if the Flames were smart, they'd be selling high on his 35-goal season instead of trying to build a playoff roster around he and Jonathan Huberdeau. One imagines that Kadri would also like to move on to a more competitive team, and hey, maybe that's not the Canucks, but he does appear to enjoy playing in Canada, so if he can come to Vancouver and be a quote-unquote missing piece, maybe that has an appeal. In any case, with a full no-move clause, any destination will be of Kadri's choosing. Next up, we have Casey Mittelstadt of the Boston Bruins. Don't jump on us right away. One of the mental exercises we engaged in while writing this article was to look out at various league rosters and think, who do we not want the Canucks to acquire? But could we see them trading for? And the answer is Mittelstadt. If the Bruins are considering trading Zacha, one has to think they'd prefer to move Mittelstadt. First, he's coming off a poor showing and makes $5.75 million a year. From a Canucks' perspective, Mittelstadt looks like a lot of what they already have and have little of what they would seem to need. We don't want this to happen, and we just wouldn't be entirely shocked if it did. Next up, we have Kirby Dach of the Montreal Canadiens. Technically, the Canadiens could have made our quote-unquote cap-cutting list. They're almost $6 million over the cap, but that will be rectified by either trading Carey Price's contract or putting it on LTIR. The more immediate pressure for the Canadiens is on roster space. They've got a plethora of young forwards looking to burst through, and other interesting names around the fringes, like former Abbotsford Canuck Sammy Blais. If Ducks' latest injury troubles result in him having a slow start to the season, or even a poor training camp, he could become available very quickly, and if it's for relatively cheap, the Canucks could definitely stand to take a flyer on a 6'4" former third overall pick. Next up, we have Michael Rasmussen. He's big, he's from BC, and he's getting pushed out of the picture by younger Detroit forwards. The only issue here is that the odds of Rasmussen developing into a true top 6 forward at age 26 and with a career high of 33 points seem very slim. Then again, bigger bodies tend to take longer to develop, and Rasmussen is 6'6". This could be one of the more intriguing buy low options on the market if he's truly on the market. And last, but certainly not least, we have Mika Zibanejad from the New York Rangers. One last really out there one for the road. There was plenty of talk of Zibanejad being involved in a JT Miller trade last year, but that didn't happen. The indications have always seemed to be that Zibanejad, who has a full no-move clause, simply prefers to stay in New York. That said, if there were any other destination that worked for Zibanejad, Vancouver would presumably be it. There are plenty of other Swedes that are there already, and a thriving local art scene for the would-be DJ. Given Zibanejad's inconsistent performance and high salary, there's even the chance that the Rangers would be quote-unquote selling low on him just to get that cap hit off the books. In the long term, the trouble for the Canucks would be in finding that same cap space themselves, but that's a story for another article. So that is the article with some fresh takes on the Canucks' reported second-line center trade route. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Out of these quote-unquote fresh takes, which jump out for you? Now, is it Pavel Zacha? Is it Casey Mittelstadt? Is it still Marco Rossi? Or is it still Mason McTavish? Or is it some of these other ones that we mentioned that we haven't really been talking about a whole lot lately, or that the Canucks could revisit? Guys like Marty Necas, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Josh Norris. Let me know in the comment section down below who you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change. Find our Facebook page. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X at Line Change Man. You can find us on TikTok at the TLC Podcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at The Line Change. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated and really helps out the podcast. But that's going to do it for me. As always, let's go Canucks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.